Well, we're less than a week away, 6 days now, from a highly consequential election in Wisconsin. Some big names are weighing in on the state Supreme Court race. But will it make a difference?
Here to talk about the latest polls, spending, endorsements, and voter turnout projections, our political analyst, Brandon Scholes. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Brandon.
Thanks for having me. Nice to see you all.
We have a lot to talk about.
If your heads aren't spinning yet, they will soon. There's so much going on. And, you think with all the other stories out there, this is barreling down on us next week.
Well, early voting is looking to be pretty robust. And I know we reported on the Marquette Law School poll saying voters said they didn't really have much of an opinion about either Supreme Court candidate. But why are people turning out, and what can we expect next week with turnout?
Well, as we're going to talk about after this, we're going to talk about spending because we're going to hit $100 million. $100 million talks. So what does that mean? That means people are starting to pay attention. And there is a push on both sides to vote early. We're going to put a graphic up on the screen that shows what's happening in Wisconsin because it's significantly different than what we saw 2 years ago in 2023. If you look at this map, you'll see that in the red counties, and kind of orange in my view, but those are Republican counties that in the previous election did not have the higher early voting numbers. These are now up where they are. You see the blue counties, those are Democrats, and the purple counties, which are kind of the purples, they kind of go both sides. But what's significant here is in the Republican counties, while their early votes are a little bit less than Democrats, they have more impact on the overall statewide election. So the more Republicans turn out in these red counties, that gives them advantage. And that's different than 2023. The blue advantage over red in 2023 was 9,000 votes. Now it's down to 3,000. That's early voting only. In the last election, usually in these elections we see about a 20% turnout. Last time we saw in the mid-30s, we could see between 35 and 40% this time. So, and the other piece here is in Milwaukee. So we look at Milwaukee and that far as the state, and they're what we call the wow counties, Waukesha, Jefferson, Ozaukee. That's where the battle is because Republicans need those votes out of wow counties to counter Democrat votes in Milwaukee. Right now, early votes in that wow counties exceed Democrats almost 15-20%. So this is a real change what we see. We'll get to the polls in a minute, but what you see here is real interest in this race. That's a big change in the last 2 weeks.
$100 million, that's a historic record breaker. And the job of a state Supreme Court justice is to deal with constitutional issues from the lower courts, not to set sentences for criminals. So are all of these ads doing the voters a disservice because they're not about anything that a Supreme Court justice does?
Right. So people want to know, why are we going to see $100 million worth of money spent here? Because at some point, you have to wonder if that works and what message is getting to voters. Joe Murray, who's an analyst in Madison, has a really good point, and that is, at some point, when you start spending that much money and you saturate the airwaves with that many ads, is your return on that investment, that spending, getting you what you thought, or is it just kind of people are checking out and going into the kitchen when the ads are on? I know you don't want to hear that, but that's sometimes what happens. But those ads say, not that the Supreme Court sentences people to jail. You don't go there because you didn't pay your parking ticket, they're going to pull you in. What those ads go to, they're attempting to go to, is character. As a judge, did Judge Crawford or Judge Schimmel make the right decision on the bench in their sentencing? And if so, are they qualified? Is that a qualification to get them to the court? Because if we talk about what happens on the Supreme Court, and no offense to the court, but it's not sometimes the most exciting stuff you're going to find. And, sitting through those cases, you might nap. But what they want to do is they want people to get involved in these races and understand the character of what these judges are and what they're going to bring to the bench. So that's why you see a record-setting amount of money spent in Wisconsin. Today, it's probably in the mid-80 million. So another 15 or 20 million could come into this race in the next week. Both candidates are raising enormous amounts of money, as are outside groups. Elon Musk has dropped $20 million in this state. So on top of that now, you have all the ads, you have all the campaign stuff, endorsements. What's important? Well, Brad Schimmel just has an ad on TV that says Donald Trump endorsed him from his post on social. Barack Obama is on top. Both candidates have members of the Supreme Court from their side. Both candidates have judges and sheriffs and DAs. So they've built their endorsements around all of these folks. They have their congressional delegations. What it tells you is these are partisan races now. The notion that this is a nonpartisan race is gone. You're never going to put that genie back in the bottle. So what are we looking at? You're going to see the thing here is turnout. What happens next week and who goes to vote? As we've said before, Democrats need to engineer what we'll call a revenge vote. Vote against Donald Trump, vote for Susan Crawford. Republicans will have to engineer a MAGA vote. If you love Donald Trump, then you go vote for Brad Schimmel because that's where it is. Now, whether that's right or wrong, somebody else can discuss that, but that's what's going to drive turnout next week. And we see it happening today in Pennsylvania. There's a special election in a Republican congressional district where the incumbent Republican is lost, beaten by a Democrat. So that is this race, as they say, is nationalized. It's going to be front and center next week. Either one who wins is going to have an impact on what happens across the country. It's wild.
6 days to go, and you'll be with us on election night.
I'm here already.
Looking forward to that. Brandon, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.